Hello, this is Becky Steinbrunner, welcoming you to Community Matters. Today is Friday, February 7th. We are already 1 week into a whole new month with a lot before us to consider. I want to thank you for joining me today. My first hour will be talking about various local issues, but I really want to encourage you to stay tuned for the second hour that begins at 3 o'clock, when we will have two guests checking in here, Mr. Frank Barron and Mr. Rick Longinotti. Both are very notable community activists who have done a tremendous amount of work in many arenas in our community over the years. They will be here today talking about the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan and what it could mean to you. If you haven't heard about this, you need to listen in and learn all that you can, because here is what it means. It's essentially removing everything or most of what we see downtown in the Laurel Street area. It's a huge area. And the proposed, I'm reading from the California Environmental Quality Act description of the project. The program is, it would be at the Beach and South of Laurel Comprehensive Area Plan. The proposed downtown plan amendments could facilitate additional development as a result of various circulation, land use, and infrastructure revisions. For purposes of environmental review, the project area could potentially accommodate a minimum of 1,800 housing units, 60,000 square feet of gross commercial area, and construction of a new, approximately 180,000 square foot permanent sports and entertainment arena for the Santa Cruz Warriors basketball team to replace the existing temporary arena that's in a sort of a tent. The arena would contain a main event court with spectator seating for approximately 3,200 seats for basketball and approximately 4,000 seats for concerts and other performances or uses. There is a draft environmental impact report out that is open for public comment on various issues, and I encourage you to stay tuned for the second hour when Mr. Frank Barron and Rick Longinotti, who are very familiar with this plan, to join us here and talk with us about what this all means and how you can learn more about it and how you can submit vital public comment on this. We have until February 21st at 5 p.m. to do so. So again, those are my guests on the second hour. Mr. Frank Barron, who is a former county and I believe city planner, and also Rick Longinotti, he's just been involved in a lot of things. So I'm honored to have them with us here today in the second hour. For my first hour, I'd like to recap a little bit. Last week we had Miss Tanya Rivera as our guest here talking about the Never Again Moss Landing group. That's the citizen grassroots group that has formed after the Landing Vistra Fire, the battery fire, when they were getting no information from the public agencies in that area. This is an amazing group, and they are still working hard to organize the people, and there are thousands now who want to be involved, and I urge you to be involved. You can go to neveragainmosslanding.org and find out what is happening. They have two Facebook groups created in the immediate aftermath of the January 16th fire. They have one that is dedicated to Moss Landing Power Plant Vistra Fire symptoms. Many people are immediately began feeling ill, and some even hospitalized. And some people are now experiencing symptoms. And then they're tracking these. And then the second Facebook group is the Moss Landing Battery Plant Environmental Disaster Community Group. That has many different community committees working on different things, and they're pulling together to work with the County District Supervisor Glenn Church, who lives in the affected area and is doing a good job of working with the people and pressuring Vistra and the EPA and other officials to get some results and information, and most of all, to never again allow this to happen. There's still active battery, there's still battery storage units at the site. This is the largest battery energy storage system. It's known as BESS in the world, right there in Moss Landing. And none of us really knew about it, or very few of us knew about it, until it caught on fire and spread a toxic plume of smoke. So this group, Never Again Moss Landing, is going to have an action day tomorrow in the parking lot at the Whole Enchilada at 12 o'clock, 12 to 12:30 that time. If you want to go and learn more, they're having a rally there and in Moss Landing. They urge you not to park across the street and cross Highway 1. Park within the village of Moss Landing and walk in. They have some information here that they sent out. You can, again, find incredible amounts of information on their website, neveragainmosslanding.org. Here's a piece of it that the research they've found about Vistra, and I'll read it to you. Founded in 2016 out of the bankrupt reorganization of Texas Competitive Electric Holdings, Vistra Corporation is a retail electricity and power generation company headquartered in Texas with a current market capitalization of over $57 billion. It has traded between $137 and $191 in the past month and closed at $168 a share on January 31st. This was when the fire was still smoldering. The company is the largest competitive power generator in the United States, with a capacity of approximately 39,000 megawatts, powered by a diverse portfolio that includes natural gas, nuclear, solar, and battery energy storage facilities. It was ranked the #1 polluter in the United States for the 2024 Greenhouse 100 Polluters Index report, producing 1.5% of all greenhouse gas emissions generated in the United States of America. Vistra opened the Moss Landing Battery Energy Storage System facility in June of 2021. There were 2 emergency mishaps reported at their facility prior to the January 16, 2024 fire. The California Public Utilities Commission has granted Vistra a 20-year permit to operate at the Moss Landing location. This is the kind of information that these good people at Never Again Moss Landing, with over 4,700 members, pulling together. I urge you to join their rally tomorrow for a community information update. That's tomorrow, Saturday, in the parking lot behind the Whole Enchilada in Moss Landing. And again, do not park on the power plant side of the road and try to cross Highway 1. Do not do that. Go ahead and park at the Whole Enchilada parking lot or somewhere in the Moss Landing village. And I really want to commend these people. They have just released the results of their 124 citizen science samples that were taken from a wide area of the Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. It went from Scotts Valley down to Gonzales and down into Carmel Valley, with, of course, many samples taken in Watsonville and Moss Landing. I saw the results. They came out last night. They are anonymous, so you cannot really see who gathered them or the address of the sample site, but it does give the mileage from the Vistra battery fire disaster. And the numbers for nickel, manganese, cobalt, and lithium tend to be quite elevated at a distance from the plant, between 3 and 5 miles away. And again, I have to qualify that I've not reviewed the information carefully. It came out late last night, and I just gave it a cursory look to see for a sort of a pattern, if you will, and that is what my unexpert eye noticed. But I urge you to go to their rally tomorrow, Saturday at noon, at the whole Enchilada parking lot in Moss Landing, and learn more, and to sign up and find out how you can help them. They're really doing an excellent job. And I really also want to commend Monterey County Supervisor Glenn Church for his good work, and also Assembly Member Dawn Addis. She has put together a piece of proposed legislation that is AB Alpha Bravo, or Assembly Bill 303. And I urge you to support her, write letters to the Assembly to pass that quickly. There's a process called gut and amend that it could be, in this case, taken advantage of, and that is when there is a bill that has been introduced and gone through all the committees, and suddenly for an emergency, and I would consider this an emergency, it can be gutted, essentially pull out everything in it that has been approved, insert the new language, and send it on its way as if it is the same bill. But it is called gut and amend, and it is used quite frequently, especially in emergencies. And I believe that this is an emergency, to allow AB 303, introduced by Assembly Member Dawn Addis, who is the representative for many of us in Santa Cruz County, too. She's mine. I'm in Aptos. And she's really working hard to try to help get some better local jurisdiction on approvals of future battery energy storage sites. They are known with the acronym of BESS. And the reason that is important is because what is now allowed under AB 205 is these companies like Vistra, or in the case of Santa Cruz County's project, New Leaf Energy, they can go do an end run around local jurisdiction and go directly to the California Energy Commission and get the okay to operate their plant. It's called an opt-in activation certificate, and they can do that. Under Dawn Addis's bill, AB 303 proposed, that will change, and it will bring more control back to the local jurisdiction, the city councils, the county board of supervisors, the people, to have some say over what happens or not in their communities regarding battery energy storage systems. So, where is Santa Cruz County with this? Well, there are 3 sites that the County Board of Supervisors has already approved for this very purpose. And that was all done last year under the very extreme pressure of then County Supervisor Bruce McPherson from the 5th Supervisorial District, who sits on the board of Central Coast Community Energy. And it was bolstered by Santa Cruz County Administrative Officer Mr. Carlos Palacios, who also sits on the board of Central Coast Community Energy, known as 3CE. Now, I feel that was a conflict of interest, and I requested that Supervisor McPherson recuse himself, but he did not. He did not. It was not even mentioned. other than by me. And it passed, and it was pressured through, and it is now a battery energy storage system combining parcels of 13 to 15 acres for creating these battery energy storage facilities in our county. The first one is already well along its way on getting permitted, and that is the project by New Leaf Energy out of Massachusetts. It's called Seahawk facility, and it is at 90 Minto Road off of Green Valley Road in Watsonville. If you're not familiar with this site, it is next to College Lake, and also next to some very dense subdivisions that have never been noticed in any of this. No, they had no idea this is coming. One of them is an affordable housing complex called Shapiro Knolls that is 100% affordable housing. That's right there. This site is, all three sites were identified as the best location for battery energy storage system facility because they are next to existing large PG&E transformer sites. So these people already have that in their backyard. And now in Watsonville, the lovely apple orchard will be bulldozed against the county's policy to preserve agricultural land. And that is what this project would do. I've spent the week with a lovely lady named Nina who attended the January 28th Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisor meeting when the board received a report from the Santa Cruz County's response to the Landing Vistra Fire. The board received many, many public comments and testimonies that day about the concerns about the Vistra Fire and concerns about the Santa Cruz County allowing another similar, a little different battery storage facility in Watsonville in the county at all. Both are lithium-based batteries, and while the owner, the applicant, New Leaf Energy, claims on their website it is safe, it is not the same technology or the way it is stored as what happened at Vistra, which was basically in a large old warehouse repurposed. New Leaf claims this is safer because the batteries, there are about 136 of them, of these units. They look like metal container, cargo containers, would be housed individually and with systems monitoring them. They would be spaced, and they're different. They're not lithium ion, they're lithium iron phosphate batteries, and New Leaf claims these do not catch on fire, which is not true. They do have a higher temperature that has to be attained before there is what's called a thermal runaway. They just explode basically, and that's really what happened in Moss Landing. But they do catch on fire. And there are alternatives, which I'll describe for you in a little bit. But I want to just read for you some of the information that I and Nina gleaned this week by going to the county planning department and talking with various people there. We talked with the planner, Mr. Evan Dittmars, and we talked with Supervisor Manu Koenig, who was the only supervisor at January 28th that really tried to put the brakes on what is coming down the pike for Santa Cruz. And he really got little support from the other supervisors, even in terms of postponing a planned, scheduled April 25th meeting, a hearing at which this project could be approved, or certainly the new county ordinance for this type of use could be approved. He was trying to postpone that until the county has more information about what happened at the Landing Vistra Fire, and he had no support from the other supervisors, and that was a disappointment. So I urge you all out there listening to Community Matters, first of all, thank you for being here, and I urge you to contact your county supervisors, all of them. They all 5 have a stake in this because they all represent us, and they all are making the decisions on this for us. So contact them all. Start with your own. You can find out who your supervisor is if you don't know, and we've got 2 new ones on there by going to the website for the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. There's a map there you can click on, and you can also click on the picture of your supervisor or any of the 5 and find out how to email them if they hold office hours. Not many of them do yet. We're going to hold hope in the 2 new supervisors, District 2 Supervisor Kim DeSerpa and District 5 Supervisor Monica Martinez. Pressure them to hold these town hall meetings. It's important. And we really need to be talking with Felipe Hernandez in the 4th District because this is his area. I'm going to read for you some of the information that Nina and I gleaned this week in our research. The project at 19 Minto Road, Watsonville, is much further down the road to approval than has been made known to the public. New Leaf Energy did not purchase the land. It's 37 acres in this one parcel, and it actually involves 2 parcels. The land remains in a heritage trust under Stephen Dobler following the death of the farmer John Lukrich. The county assessor database information shows 5 residences on the property, one dating to 1929, yet these are not listed in the hazardous assessment report filed by the plan, and the plan was submitted to the county planning department for this project on December 17th of last year. Plans submitted December 17th by Swift Consulting on behalf of New Leaf Energy do not include any information about the required public meeting that was required to be held before filing the application. This meeting was indeed held on December 12th of 2024 at a Mesty school, but it is unknown who received the mailing notice postcard that failed to provide any time of the day that the meeting was being held. It listed a date and the location, but no time. Plans submitted show at least 136 battery storage units, each with only 10-foot separation from the next. In April of 2024, DK Engineering developed the boundary and topographic survey for the site for New Leaf Energy. This is way back in April of last year. The supervisors were aware. You can bet. Supervisor McPherson on 3CE and CAO, County Administrative Officer Palacio, they've known about this for a long time. In July of last year, Dept completed a wetland stream and delineation report for the project. On November 6th of 2024, Santa Cruz County Planner Matt Johnston approved a standalone biotic report for the project. This was even before the permit application was filed. Also on November 6th of last year, County Planner Sidney Niyama approved a standalone archaeological report review for the project. And again on November 6th of 2024, County Geologist Craig Stewart approved a standalone geologic hazard assessment for the project. There is an earthquake fault nearby. The Zayante it's got a second name attached to it. A fault is quite nearby and is not really just briefly mentioned in the report. On December 10th, 2024, C2G Civil Consultants in Scotts Valley, California, developed a stormwater control plan for the proposed project. It's still before the project was filed for application. On December 12th, 2024, Swift Consulting filed the project application that included health risk analysis, which only addresses diesel particulate air quality during construction, a fire emergency response plan, which is required under SB 2038, sponsored by Senator Laird. They also submitted a hazardous consequences analysis, a noise study, and a decommissioning estimate. There is no neighborhood meeting results report included in this. It was held that day. Who knows what time? Also, we discovered that nearby residences on the adjacent downwind parcel will be vacated until the battery energy storage system facility is decommissioned in 2050. These two residences, and these are not part of the parcels in the Dobler Trust, Heritage Trust. These are neighbors. These two residences, labeled Gomez and a barn, are shown as nearby sensitive receptors. That means they could be affected at 280 feet and 300 feet away. They may have received notice of that meeting at MSD, as is the Pajaro Valley Unified School District bus sheds and offices at the end of Grimmer Lane, which is off of Holohan. That is 1,220 feet away from the proposed project. None of the adjacent dense residential divisions off of Green Valley and are directly adjacent to this project, or the Shapiro Knolls Affordable Housing Complex is even mentioned, but are actually closer to the proposed facility than the Grimmer address is. The proposed project plan shows a 12-foot to 14-foot high noise wall on the side of the project facing College Lake, but does not include any noise wall for the north side of the project that faces the dense residential subdivisions. That area of the proposed project would have a 7-foot high chain-link fence with vegetative landscaping that includes incense cedar trees on one page of the plan and Douglas fir trees on another version of the plan. The landscape plan was developed by Dudak's office in Portland, Oregon. These trees are quite flammable in wildland fire and would probably be also in a battery energy storage system fire. My opinion. Here's another fact we learned. New Leaf Energy has a local office now in Oakland, California, even though their headquarters is in Massachusetts. Sequoia Energy Storage, LLC, is also listed as party to the project with the address in Oakland, California. However, the principal, Mr. Max Christian, has the address listed in Lowell, Massachusetts. All of the proposed BESS project area is within the existing production apple orchard and encompasses 2 parcels. I'm going to read those 2 parcels now for you, so if you want to write them down, you can and research them yourself. Here are the assessor parcel numbers: 051 110 177. Again, 051 10177, and also 051 10178. And they are zoned for agriculture. The plan requires significant cut and fill grading. The county must rezone the land from agricultural use, and the County Agricultural Policy Advisory Commission, known as APAC, must approve taking the land out of agriculture production, as well as the required 1-to-1 conservation agreement that is part of all of this. Now, I wanted to find out, this is my interjection here, I wanted to find out when the APAC meets next, and I saw that it is due to meet February 20th. I looked up the agenda of their last meeting, which was in October, and it said that they would be considering then where they were going to meet this year, 2025. Their next meeting was then scheduled to be February 20th, and they were debating whether to meet in Aptos Village Park, where they normally meet, or if they were going to meet down in Watsonville at the brand new South County Government Center. They were just going to deliberate that, and there was no note, and there was nothing, no information. So I contacted Miss Sheila McDaniel, who is the planning staff that advises this group, and asked her when are they going to meet and where. And she soon replied saying, oh, the APAC was scheduled to meet on February 20th, but the meeting was canceled just this morning due to a lack of items for consideration. The support staff should post a meeting cancellation online shortly. Nothing to see here, even though they've got this huge project that could be up for Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors to consider for approval in April. And the APAC only meets every few months, and there's nothing to consider here. Isn't that interesting? Moving along, here's what else we learned. The proposed project plan indicates the Zyanti-Vergelis Fault is nearby. That's the name of that fault, the Zyanti-Vergelis, and that's V as in Victor, E-R-G-E-L-E-S fault. And a local resident there confirmed that with me. She said that there's no building allowed there because the fault is right there near College Lake. The proposed project plan inaccurately lists Central Fire Protection District as the jurisdiction, when in fact the project is within the Pajaro Valley Fire District. And maybe that explains why no one from the Pajaro Valley Fire District even knew about this, except that the county fire marshal did phone them up and wondered if they knew. So, Pajaro Valley Fire District is struggling. They do not have enough money to have any more than 2 firefighters at a time on duty. And so that means they cannot take their water tender out. They cannot take other pieces of equipment out. And their station is out on Salsapuedes Road. This area could be inaccessible in the winter if there is road flooding on Paulson Road and out in that way. But think how long it would take for a fire engine to get to this site at 90 Minto Road on Green Valley coming from Salsapuedes Road. It could take a while. Moving along, here's what else we learned. The proposed project plan inaccurate. Oh, I already said that. Sorry. The proposed project plan includes only a 10,000-gallon water tank on site. That's not even what is required for a residential use. That's 15,000 gallons. But I guess you don't really want to put water on a lithium-ion battery fire, do you? Maybe that's what they're thinking. We don't know what they're thinking. Moving along, the project would be unmanned. Let me read that again. The project would be unmanned, with a note that cancer is likely to occur over the course of the project for any personnel visiting the site long-term, and would instead rely on SCADA. This is an acronym, S as in Sam, C-A-D as in David, A, radio information to relay indications of storage cell venting, which is the initial stage of battery failure, and smoke detection. Therefore, it states on page 322 of the health risk analysis, health risk is less than significant, and the chronic hazard index is less than significant. Well, what about for the people who live right next to it? That's not considered. It is unknown where the information would be received from these radio telemetry things, and how quickly staff could respond. Where would their office be? How would they respond? And how nearby populations in adjacent subdivisions downwind would be affected and or notified. Chemicals listed in the plan do not include HF gas, which is typical in lithium fires and extremely hazardous to health and the environment. The analysis only lists hydrogen gas as a byproduct of the refrigerant that would be used and includes a warning that all firefighter personnel should stay 100 feet away from the troubled battery container doors. Nina and I spoke with the project planner, Mr. Evan Ditmars, and he is aware that the New Leaf Energy public meeting held in December did not post any time on the postcards mailed out to what seems to be a very small list to notice for their one required meeting before filing their application, but he was not concerned. That's what's shocking. He didn't seem to care. He just said, there will be plenty of opportunities for public input because the project will very likely require a full environmental impact report. But I don't trust that. I don't trust that, and I hope you won't either. If you've just joined us, you're listening to Community Matters. I'm your host, Becky Steinbrunner. I'll be joined in the second hour, and I hope you'll stay tuned, by Mr. Frank Barron and Mr. Rick Longinotti talking about the Santa Cruz City downtown expansion plan. And so please do stay on and listen for that. And please, regarding the Moss Landing Vistra Fire and what is coming down the pike, hurtling down the pike in Santa Cruz County, is a battery energy storage system using lithium technology. There are other technologies out there, such as sodium technology, and I urge you to look into that. It is much safer and does not catch on fire. So look up sodium battery energy storage systems, research that, and see what you can find, see what you think. And above all, contact your county supervisors. They have a meeting coming up Tuesday, and urge them to put this on the agenda. It is not on next Tuesday's agenda. As a follow-up item for what happened in Moss Landing, as a follow-up item for what Supervisor Manu Koenig tried to do to put the brakes on the Watsonville project. Nothing is on the agenda. We have to demand that it is on the agenda. This county can take action now to create an ordinance that is more restrictive than what the state requires. It can be more restrictive, not less restrictive. And thereby, we have control over what happens in our community. We need to demand that there is a moratorium on lithium battery energy storage systems in Santa Cruz County until we have convened a technical advisory committee made up of professionals, not industry, not led by New Leaf, not led by Vistra, but experts who can help the county staff develop this ordinance. The county staff are not experts. And so who do you think they're going to be listening to? The people paying the money for the project? That's my suspicion. So don't allow that. We cannot allow that in Santa Cruz County. A technical advisory committee made up of experts, and I interviewed one here on Community Matters recently, Mr. Phil Caranco, who is the regulatory policy manager for Amazon. He has worked for many Fortune 500 companies. He lives in our county. He is volunteering his time if the supervisor will only ask. Let's urge our supervisors to ask. Mr. Cronco and others who I'm sure would be very happy to step up and help craft an ordinance for Santa Cruz County for battery energy storage systems that will protect the environment and its people. We've got to do this. We've got to do it now. We've got to do it quickly. So, urge you to look up Never Again Moss Landing. Connect with those people tomorrow around noon, 12:30 in the parking lot at the Whole Enchilada in Moss Landing. Do not park across the road and try to run across Highway 1. Park within the village if you need to, but take part in this and call your supervisors. Urge them for a moratorium on lithium battery storage technology in Santa Cruz County and to convene a technical advisory group made up of impartial experts, not Vistra, not New Leaf Energy. We've got to do this. Other items on the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors agenda for next Tuesday may be of interest to you who live out in the county in an area that is not under the jurisdiction of any fire protection district like Central, Watsonville City, Pajaro Valley Fire District, Boulder Creek, Ben Lomond, everything else not covered within the boundaries of those agencies is within the state responsibility area and known as Santa Cruz County Fire Department. Santa Cruz County contracts with CAL FIRE to provide training and facilities, in some cases, for volunteers and equipment purchased and funded by the county taxpayers under County Service Area 48. There are two versions of it. And also County Service Area 4, which only covers Pajaro Dunes in Watsonville. And that provides year-round fire and emergency medical response to the county's unincorporated areas that are not within the jurisdiction of another fire agency. In last year, the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors dissolved the Citizens Advisory Commission for that fire agency, and it's been in limbo. What also happened is Santa Cruz County Local Area Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, also submitted a report recommending that there be big changes within County Fire to include it, to transform it to an independent fire district, so that instead of, as it is now, the County Board of Supervisors acts as the board of directors for County Fire, and they don't know what they're doing. And also to change it to an independent where the people in County Fire, funded by CSA 48, would be allowed to run for the board, to elect their board members that represent them. Because right now, we don't have that ability. And right now, we have no voice because the Citizens Advisory Liaison Group, the Fire Department Advisory Commission, was disbanded. Again, we have Mr. Carlos Palacios to thank for that. He dissolved many citizen advisory commissions. So this coming Tuesday, the County Board of Supervisors will consider recommendations by CAO Carlos Palacios regarding the formation and operational procedures of the new Fire Department Advisory Group. Now, what's different between a group and a commission? Well, listen up. In fulfilling the duties, the Fire Department Advisory Group, and I'm just going to refer to it as the group from here on out, will explore alternatives to the governance structure of County Fire with a focus on making it more effective. The group will collaborate with other fire agencies and groups, whoever that is, concerned about fire and emergency services to examine options for improving services for all who live and work in Santa Cruz County. The group will, listen to this, will operate without formal bylaws, and it will not be governed by the Brown Act. The Brown Act has to do, as I'm sure you know, when meetings have to be noticed, allowing public to be present, allowing public to participate. It's called the Sunshine Act. The group will not be governed by the Brown Act. And in accordance with Santa Cruz County Code Section 2.38.071A5, alternate procedures concerning public participation, noticing of meetings, quorum requirements, minutes, and any other appropriate matters will be provided. alternate ways to do that. Gee, I wonder if it's going to be more transparent instead of less transparent. That makes you wonder, doesn't it? According to the operating procedures on Tuesday's agenda packet, the new group will only meet on an as-needed basis. The group meetings will not require a quorum of its membership, and it will not have a minimum attendance requirement of members. So in essence, they could just have a meeting. CAO Palacios and the Director of General Services, Mr. Michael Beaton, could just decide to have a meeting. They would not have to notice it 72 hours in advance or even 24 hours in advance if it's an emergency. And they wouldn't have to tell anybody. They would just only have to let the other members know they wanted to have a meeting. They could show up or not, and they could still make decisions with Mr. Beaton and Mr. Palacios. While some group meetings will not be held publicly, the public will be able to access the group's meeting notice, if you know about it, their standing agenda, and minutes for the meetings by either independently viewing them on the County Fire Department website or by requesting the materials to be sent electronically as available. So that's item number 10 on Tuesday's meeting for the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. If you think this is concerning, please contact your supervisor. Please try to participate in the meeting. You can do so remotely, you can show up in person, but watch out. If you're there for more than 2 hours, you could get a parking ticket because they just hired a new parking attendant that is writing tickets furiously. You can go to the third floor, General Services Department, and get a parking pass for $5. Or you can risk getting a $29 ticket. But do go. It's important. Because this is our county fire protection. This is our emergency response protection. And this is our local government that to me looks like is getting less transparent rather than more transparent. I think I can open up the phone lines here. Let me see if we're connected in, and I want to thank you for listening to me rant here about what's going on in Santa Cruz County, and also urge you to stay tuned for the second hour when Mr. Frank Barron and Mr. Rick Longinotti are my guests to talk about the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan. You will not believe it when you see these plans, and these two gentlemen are very familiar with it, and they're going to help us all learn how to look at the plans and how to effectively make comments on them that will be meaningful and that must be addressed in the response to them. That's all due by February 21st. All right, so if you'd like to call, here's the number. 831-265-5050. Again, 265-5050. And I'm hoping that I've got this all hooked up and going, so please give me a call and see if it's working. This is Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and I am your host and happy to be here in the beautiful Santa Cruz Satellite Workplace and Digital Media Center at 325 Soquel Avenue. We share this great facility with community television, and also you can be here. This is the first, no, this is not the first Friday. The first Friday of every month, you can come for free and try out working here, having small meetings, and learning how to make podcasts and things that could be of great benefit to you, your family, your company, whatever, and use this space. It is clean, quiet, very secure, very safe, and a very comfortable place in which to do work. You can rent it by the hour by the day, by the week, by the year, and it's very, very reasonably priced. Satellite Work and Digital Media Center at 325 SoCal Avenue, and that's where Santa Cruz Voice is, in our studio here, tucked away, and very grateful to have you listening to us here on Community Matters. I've got a little bit of time here. If you have a little bit of time to call in and verify too that you're here, that you're listening, that the system is working, please call in 831-265-5050, and let's see if we can get this to work. There are many things happening. Many things happening. I just looked at the Santa Cruz City Manager's Weekly Update. There is February 18th, a community webinar on flood control and climate change. And that will be February 18th, that's a Tuesday, from 6 to 7 p.m. to learn about new modeling of the potential impacts of climate change on the San Lorenzo River flooding, and to discuss how the city and the community can begin to plan for it. 9 new police officers just joined the Santa Cruz City Police Department. That's always a good thing, to have plenty of safety in our community. And let's see, the city's new Sustainability and Resiliency Committee, City of Santa Cruz, is recruiting residents with expertise in climate advocacy, transportation, water, trees, waste, buildings, energy, or resiliency for 3 at-large members, including 1 youth aged 24 or younger, to serve on the new Sustainability and Resiliency Committee. It's a pilot committee that serves as an advisory body to the Santa Cruz City Council on climate and resiliency matters. The application deadline is February 24th. You can go to the city website and learn more. Regarding the city, I was able to attend their Santa Cruz City Water Commission meeting on Monday, and I am so impressed by the work that the city of Santa Cruz is doing to really work to be able to capture the water when we have it in abundance and store it and use it when we need it. They are doing tremendous projects, and we're all going to see a lot of evidence of that, especially on Graham Hill Road this summer, when they begin creating the intertie connection between the city of Santa Cruz and the city of Scotts Valley Water Department. When that is done, it's going to, first of all, eliminate the very old and problematic pipeline water pipe that goes through Henry Cowell, but again hook up with Scotts Valley, and it will create a more regional water management system that will better serve our county as a whole. So kudos to the city of Santa Cruz. They're doing most of the work in-house to reduce costs, unlike what SoCal Creek Water District does, hires a professional consultant for big bucks at the drop of a pin. So I hope you stay with us for the second hour. We're coming up to the 3 o'clock news break. This is Becky Steinbrunner, your host for Community Matters. Please stay with us and learn more about the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan.
Audio recording is on. Dual channel. Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Hello? Hello, is there anyone there? Shoot.
Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Hello?
Hello, it's Rick.
Hi, Rick. Thank you. I was having a little difficulty there. Thank you so much. Frank is also joining us via phone. I'm going to try and get him on. The two of you can be on the same time.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello, Frank.
Hey, Becky. I heard what you said to Rick.
Oh, good. Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, thank you both very much for taking time to be the guests here today. And
Yeah, I imagine it's a relief just that we both remember to show up.
I had no doubt. You're amazing. But you're going to miss the 2 chocolate bars I had for you in case you showed up in person.
Oh, God.
I'll bring them to you somewhere. No, thank you. We're going to be on in about a minute and a half. So what I'd like to do is have you introduce yourselves. And I see Russell Bruchet is also calling in. Do you want to hold on him, or do you want him to join in with you? I don't know if you've arranged that.
We did not arrange that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just let him stay on hold. Maybe I'll just let him know that briefly. But what I'd like you to do is introduce yourselves, and I'll let you run with this for the full hour. We can take calls. Russell's called in. But what I really am hoping to do is to let people know what this is, what it would look like, your impact, your evaluation of the impacts, and what we need to do before February 21st to have our say.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, Frank, like we've done before, I think you're the best person to lead off and describe what the project is and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I could do that briefly, and I'll try to do that.
Okay. I'm going to just check in with Russell. I think I can put him on mute, but I'll let him know that what our plan is, and we can bring him in. Do you want to have him come in a little later once you've had a chance to explain?
Yeah,
I think that would be best.
Okay, let me get him now. Hi, Russell. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi.
Number one klutz here. I'm not trying to be in the program. I'm just trying to watch it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to mute you then, okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go on here in just a moment. Welcome
And
back.
will you be asking us questions?
Yes, I will be asking.
Okay.
I'm going to let you just decide what you want to say, but I'd like to welcome our listeners back to Community Matters. This is your host, Becky Steinbrunner, and we have the great honor of having two wonderful local activists joining us here by phone, and it is Mr. Frank Barron and Mr. Rick Longinotti, who are going to describe for us what the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan draft environmental impact report is looking like. It is open for the public comment now until February 21st. This is a critical opportunity for everybody to weigh in on this with meaningful comments. And I'm going to hand it over to, let's go first to Rick Longinotti. Please introduce yourself, and then you can toss the ball to Frank Barron.
Yeah, we'll do. So, hi, everybody. It's Rick Longinotti. I've been involved in various efforts to, I think you could call them good governance efforts, trying to get our government to be responsive and to do the right thing. And that was some years ago, leading the effort to find alternatives to desalination, a very expensive and very energy-intensive process. And we did succeed, actually, in passing a ballot measure in 2012 that put the citizens in charge of whether a desalination plant would be built. It requires a vote of the people before the plant could be approved. And that's in the city charter. And I've also been involved in trying to get Caltrans and our local regional transportation commission to be responsive on the issue of transportation on Highway 1. As we all know, it's a very congested commute route, and the solution that's been proposed for that, which is auxiliary lanes, exit-only lanes, has been determined not to be effective to really relieve congestion. Nevertheless, the politicians are moving forward with that as we speak. So I've been involved in a couple lawsuits around that environmental impact report. And I guess that's what gives me some idea about our current situation, where the environmental impact report describing this project fails to identify some really significant impacts that I've delved into, and we'll talk in a minute about that. But that's on the issue of our water supply, but also the issue of attracting a whole bunch of new people into a flood zone. So I want to pass it to Frank, who really described what this downtown plan expansion is all about, and what, if it actually goes forward as proposed, what the impacts are going to be in general.
Thank you. Frank, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Becky. My name is Frank Barron. I'm a retired city planner, live in the city, and city and county planner, and regional planner. And I was involved with Measure M, which was on the March 2024 ballot. And that was the measure that would have required a vote of the people when the city wants to raise height limits. And it also would have bumped up the affordability rate that developers have to supply when they build new buildings from 20% to 25%. But that failed at the ballot. Part of the genesis of that ballot measure was this project. And this project is called the Downtown Plan Expansion Project. It's also, some people refer to it as the SOLA, or South of Laurel Area project. So it's 29 acres in the South of Laurel area, where the Kaiser Arena is now, north of that where the Wheelworks is, and the Ace Hardware, going all the way down towards where Lots Auto Stereo and the Aloha Motors used car places, and then going all the way down to the traffic circle at the base of Beach Hill there, right in front of Depot Park. It includes all of that area, and then actually going north from there towards the police station. So it includes quite a big area, and they want to add that area to what they call the downtown plan. So this is the downtown plan expansion, southward expansion. The idea is that the city wants to do there. Well, the main impetus of it was to build a new arena for the Warriors. And I personally am not against having a new arena. I love the Warriors. I want them to stay, but part of that is including to and to get a new arena built, they have to get real estate proceeds to help fund it. And so they want to upzone, increase the height limits in a lot of that area. So right now, the height limits are pretty high already, especially when you take into account the state density bonus. So right now they can build, right now the height limits in the area along the river are like 48 feet, and then the rest of the site is, basically 35 feet. And the city is saying, as part of this expansion project, they want to increase those height limits to like 70 feet, and then even 85 feet along the river. And the problem with that is, those heights aren't, super extreme. They're a little bit taller than what we're seeing now being built in the downtown area, but not too bad. But the problem is with the state density bonus, and there's a new state density bonus that allows them to go even higher, but that allows them to double the amount of units they can build and basically increase the height to a very high level. There's actually no height limit given, but they can double the amount of housing units built. And that's how, as people probably remember, the Clock Tower Center project that was being built, or not being built, being proposed for the lot right across from where the clock tower is, where the Rush Inn is and some of those office buildings. And that was just shocking to people that they could propose such a tall building on that location. That location has a 50-foot height limit, and here they are proposing a 192-foot building. Wow. And they can do that because of this new state density bonus law, the 100% state density bonus law. So my biggest issue with this whole project and the environmental impact report that's out right now is that it doesn't even take that into account. It doesn't even mention the new 100% state density bonus law. It doesn't evaluate what raising the height limits in the south of Laurel could result in if a developer comes in and decides they want to apply the 100% state density bonus law to an 85-foot zone. You could have a 25 or even 30-story building there if they really wanted to do that. So that's something that's the biggest flaw in the environmental impact report I see. So the environmental impact report just came out 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the comment due date is like 2 weeks from now. It's basically on the 21st of February. If you want to make your views known to the city about this project, you have until the 21st to do that. And you can find the environmental impact report on the city website. Just Google downtown plan expansion, and you should be able to get to that link to see the environmental impact report for the downtown plan expansion. There's about a bunch of appendices and other documents that are related to it. So it's a whole bunch of documents, but the big one is the environmental impact report itself. And we have a lot of different impacts that we're concerned about, but that one I mentioned about them not taking into account the potential super increase in height. Yeah. I think that's the big one that really relates to all the other issues too. The other impacts would have to be reevaluated too, because they could do way more than their anticipated 1,600 units. It could be twice that many or more.
Yes. I looked at the document. It is, as most EIRs, draft environmental impact reports are, a huge document. For people who have never waded into this before, it is overwhelming. And Rick, I'd like to turn it over to you. What would you recommend people do to evaluate and effectively submit comments on issues that concern them? I know that people who see something and just say, "This is terrible, please don't do this," that does not elicit any meaningful comment on as it moves forward through the project. So coach us, please. You two are very well experienced in this. How do we begin to wade in and look at a massive document, and how do we submit effective comment that could actually bring about a change?
Yeah, got it. I do want to do that, do a little coaching about how to comment on the draft EIR, but I also want to put that in context of a larger and more long-term effort to have some influence
Yes.
with the city over this project. As Frank mentioned, Measure M failed, but and we don't have exit polling to figure out why people voted against that, but it was framed as an anti-affordable housing measure.
Yeah.
And affordable housing is popular, and why wouldn't it be? It's a need in our community. I think that was a dishonest framing. Measure M had a requirement for 25% affordable units in the new downtown, the south of Laurel area, but that's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But so the motivation for this project, aside from a new Warriors arena, is to meet the city's affordable housing goals, right? The city needs to meet, has to supply the state with a housing element, which they already did. They submitted it. It's been approved. So there's like 3,600 new units that have to be built by, I'm not sure when the year is, probably Frank would know that. And this south of Laurel area, as under the current zoning, would meet over 1,000 of those units. So the other units would be built in other parts of the city. So the rationale for upzoning, and there was allowing more density in the south of Laurel, was, you allow more density, you allow more affordable housing to get built. Well, I think the layperson doesn't really, hasn't really commented on the EIRs or knows what to look for, could comment on the fact that that goal can be accomplished in other ways. There's an alternative one named by the EIR that would preserve the existing zoning, has one fly in the ointment in our opinion, which is creates a new density bonus that allows developers to buy their way out of building affordable housing at a much lower rate. But I think that the layperson trying to comment on this would say something like, we figured out a way to meet our state housing goals, right? If we're thinking about upzoning for the future to meet goals, beyond the mid 2030s, let's do it in a more careful way. Because allowing 20-story buildings in the south of Laurel impacts our community in a negative way for a number of reasons. Just pure aesthetically, this is a tourist town. People people enjoy Santa Cruz and walking on Pacific Avenue. It reminds them of something their communities have disappeared.
Yes.
But also the city recognizes the value of integrating new development with existing neighborhoods, and this certainly doesn't do that. You'll have a neighborhood with 20-story buildings right next to neighborhoods with single-family housing and small multi-unit housing. And what about parks? The city has a policy on there should be a certain amount of square footage of park space per unit. Well, have they figured out how this is going to comply with that? No, because as Frank pointed out, they don't consider the actual potential for the developers choosing the new density, 100% density bonus under new legislation. The CIR fails in that way. So those are just some of the things people could express in their comments on the EIR. We're concerned about our water supply. We want an honest appraisal of the impact this will have in the drought years. All those I think is all leading towards a political solution. I think ultimately, even more valuable than commenting on the EIR would be for people to contact their elected leaders, members of city council. Their contact information is on the city council website. Because if politicians are good at anything, it's kind of like knowing which way the wind is blowing. And I think the wind is blowing in the direction of a certain real unease, anxiety about the direction Santa Cruz is going with handing the keys to the city to the developers. So that's all I'll say right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would add, when you are making comments, I mean, one of the big things to say, I think, is that there is no need for the city to upzone, to raise the heights. The existing height limits are high enough to go 7, 8, 9, 10 stories, even 12 stories right now. They can do that with the state density bonus. So there's no need, if they're hoping to keep it at 12 stories, there's no need for the, which they are, that's the city's proposal. There's no need for them to raise the height limits as they are proposing to do. Once they do that, there's no way to go back. It's irreversible change. The state doesn't allow you to downzone anymore. It only allows you to upzone. And so they need to, I would say that people should emphasize that. This would be like shooting themselves in the foot. It's an unforced error, self-inflicted wound. The city doesn't need to do it. You can get all your, all the housing that you're proposing to get. You can get the Warrior Stadium, and you don't need to raise the height limits because they can already get that high as high as they need to go. And that would be, kind of my main takeaway. But there are, as Rick mentioned, there are a bunch of other environmental issues, impacts that need that people will have concerns about, that we have concerns about, and that we'll be, we'll be writing our own comment letters. And one of them is water. Traffic is another.
Mm-hmm. Traffic is indeed another. And I have received some correspondence from Miss Jillian Greenside, who has also looked at this, and that is a big issue she is concerned about. Do you have any thoughts on the traffic study? It says on the website it's not required under CEQA, but that it was done because it was part of the downtown plan. Can you talk about what is included in the draft EIR of this expansion plan regarding traffic?
Well, they say that there's not going to be any significant impact. You're going to have 1,800, 16 to 1,800 new housing units, and no significant impact on traffic. Come on. It already has gridlock on busy summer weekends, or busy weekends in general, from all the out of town people. And during rush hour, Laurel Street gets backed up all the way up to Mission sometimes, coming back on the afternoon rush hour. How could they say that? So anyway, they did something. I don't know how their traffic study. I haven't looked at it that closely. But one thing I do know is that they did not look at things like Uber, rideshare services, DoorDash, all these people in these towers. They're not going to have, supposedly they're not going to have cars because they're not providing enough parking. So that's another big issue is parking. They only have one parking space for every 3 units or something like that. So they're saying, oh yeah, these will be people that don't have cars. Those will be riding their electric bikes around. But there's going to be a lot of traffic generated by Ubers, by deliveries, Amazon trucks will be coming in, UPS. Anyway, so I don't think they looked at any of that, and that's something that I think people should point out. The traffic study is a separate document, but there's a link to it provided on the city webpage.
Yes, and
one thing I just want to add
Rick.
about the traffic thing. If the city wanted to, it could propose a mitigation. We have, so one of the purposes of the project is to connect the downtown with the beach. It's always been really separate, and a lot of people don't ever visit the downtown who have come into Santa Cruz to go to the beach, right? And downtown business owners are always lamenting, like, well, there's thousands of people down there and they're not coming to shop or to eat in the downtown. Okay, good idea. Let's connect the two. Well, one way to do that is to get people to park in the city parking garages in the regular downtown. Most people don't know that those parking garages on summer weekends have much lower occupancy than they do on weekday afternoons. Okay, so in the periods on weekends in the summer when we have thousands of people visiting Santa Cruz, the parking garages have tons of capacity in them, and meanwhile, people are driving down to the boardwalk to try to find a parking place down there and so on. Well, they could. There are various ways to give incentives for people to park in the downtown and take a shuttle down to the boardwalk, and one of them might be congestion pricing, where it is a cul-de-sac. I mean, it's like Front Street is like a cul-de-sac. It ends at the beach. You can't go any farther than the Pacific Ocean. So, if you got people to park downtown, you provide this charge if they entered, the zone past the downtown, there would be a per car charge, and that would be an incentive to, hey, park, hop on the shuttle. But so we'll propose that, but it takes some imagination, creativity for someone in the city to implement that.
How would one phrase that as a comment that would be possibly taken to heart and effectively responded to in the final EIR?
Yeah, I think you could ask, could the draft environmental impact report examine the use of congestion pricing and a shuttle to reduce the vehicle miles traveled generated by this project.
Okay, thank you. We have a caller. Do you want to take the caller? Would you like to describe a little more about your concerns about water?
Well, let's do that in a minute. Let's hear from the caller.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if I can bring that person on. Hello, caller. Can you hear me?
Oh, I certainly can.
Excellent. Thank you. You're here joining the program today, Rick Longinotti and Frank Barron. What are your thoughts on this project?
Well, first of all, this is Lee Brokaw.
Hello.
I know both of these guys. I don't know Frank quite as well as I know Rick. I'd like to say that I admire what they're doing, but I think it's like gambling against the house. All of these documents are designed for the city to win. I want to talk a little bit outside of that, and if I could come back later, I'd like to talk about construction in this area as it's proposed, but I'd like to talk about water within the context of fire. We've just all experienced what went on down in LA with the fires. We don't have Santa Anas, we have onshores. And if the boardwalk or someplace down there started burning and scattering embers all over downtown, we're going to have a boatload of people that are going to try to get out, and they're not going to get out because the traffic at a panic is going to be gridlocked, and people are going to start running, and they're going to get burned alive. The city is not taking into account emergency evacuations due to a hazard like a fire. And I think that segues into water, having independent power support so that the pumps don't run out when PG&E turns off the power. But I think that I spoke at Public Safety Committee about this, just talking about the Front Street Laurel intersection and people piling out in a fire, thinking that because they're on a bus line, they're going to get rescued. The buses aren't going to run. And Renee Golder looked at me as I was saying that and said out loud, "Oh, I never thought of that." Well, I think the city government's responsibility is to the safety of the inhabitants of this city long before it's to the profit that is garnered by letting people build here. And that seems to be totally lost. I'd like to talk about construction, but I think I could if you bring me back, if you have time, I'd like to, as a general contractor, 37 years with a license, I'd like to talk about construction in that area.
Thank you. You've raised some good points. Let me turn it over to Rick, and then Frank, you can chime in on what Lee Brokaw has just said.
Well, I think that emergency preparedness is really an important issue, and that for me, inviting people, more and more people to live in an area that's predicted to be flooded on a regular basis doesn't make any sense. It ranks with some of the worst decisions about locating development in hazardous areas. What the policy is right now is that that the construction standards will be according to the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, flood maps, right? And the entire downtown is in what's called a 100-year floodplain. So that means in any 1 year, there's 1% chance that those levees will be breached, that the downtown would be flooded. Well, there's a document that the state of California created that says, and they chose Santa Cruz as kind of a case study, and they said, well, the sea level is rising. With a rise of 1 foot in sea level, the 100-year flood has a probability of happening every 10 years.
Wow.
Okay, so we're talking about failure. We're talking about floods downtown every 10 years, probably in the probabilities in the year 2060, right? So you need to tell people, you need to, in the EIR, you need to say, look, this is proposed for, this development is proposed for an area of frequent flooding. And I mean, if you're going to do it at all, which I think is a bad idea, why locate there at all? I mean, Sandy Leiden, the historian, said right after the earthquake, he spoke to the folks who were planning on rebuilding downtown. He said, look, downtown's in the wrong place. The Indians knew that. It's in the floodplain. And the message is still the same, but not that anybody's going to listen to that. But if you're going to do something stupid, you might as well build buildings that can withstand regular flooding. And this downtown did have those kinds of requirements before they raised the levees in the year 2000. They had construction standards that required a much more rigorous sort of resistance to flooding. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Frank, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I would urge Lee to submit comments along those lines. And with regard to emergency situations, emergency response, just like on a normal emergency response, when there's a fire or someone needs an ambulance or something, or a police call, and you have gridlock, which is going to be happening all the time, I think, a lot more than it does now. It already happens, but with all these new housing, there's going to be a lot more situations where the traffic is completely stopped. Okay, how does a fire truck get in there? That's going to be one of the big issues, and that is not addressed in the EIR as far as I can tell. I haven't, done the fine-tooth comb on it yet, but that I believe that is something that really needs to be addressed as well. And then back to flooding for a second, one of the things that wasn't addressed that I asked them to address is in the floodplain, as Rick just pointed out, by year 2060 or before, it's going to be once every 10-year flood is going to be anything over that, like an 11-year flood, will potentially cause water to flood into that flood zone, the entire downtown, and like it did in 1955. And what the project is proposing to do is put this huge amount of dirt, fill into the flood zone to ramp up like an at-grade, so that the grade of the ground is going to be even with the top of the levee. That was in the earlier version of the plan, and I think it's still in the same in the new version of the plan. Although they kind of hid it, they didn't mention it. They haven't mentioned it in the EIR, but they need to address that. Because when you put fill into a floodplain, it basically just pushes the water out, so that it causes the rest of the floodplain to have higher flood levels given the same flood, and also that it expands it further afield so that the floodwaters go further out, because now they don't have that area to go into where the fill is located. It's like putting a brick into a tub of water or something. Causes the water level to rise. So that is something that needs to be addressed in the EIR. And I have one other thing I wanted to mention. The EIR has to provide alternatives to the preferred project or the preferred alternative. And one of the alternatives, alternative one, it's called, is and Rick alluded to this also, but it says, okay, as an alternative to the project, we could just keep the height levels where they are now, the zoning and height limits where they are now, which I like. I think that's great. The only problem with alternative one is that it also includes this thing called the downtown density bonus, which would be a city-wide option for developers just for the city, or maybe it's just for the downtown area. So it would allow them to have a couple different options so they don't have to build the affordable housing in their own building. They can pay for it to be elsewhere. So and that sounds all good. I mean one of the project goals is to have a net 20% affordable, which is great. But this downtown density bonus being applied to alternative one, it still would allow very tall buildings. It would be 145 feet and 12 stories throughout the entire area. Anywhere down in that area could have a building that tall if the developer wanted to utilize that option. So I think that if alternative one should have a downsized downtown density bonus, so it should be a lower level than what they are proposing for the regular project, and then I could be supportive potentially of alternative one if it were to do that. So I just wanted to mention that. Take a look at this downtown density bonus. It's very complicated, and it's something that I understand why they're doing it, because they want to get the net 20% affordable. But if they are going to do it with the alternative one, the reduced project alternative, then they need to scale back, proportionally reduce the downtown density bonus idea. Anyway, I wanted to say that.
Thank you. Lee, I want to thank you.
Am I still here?
Yes, you are. I want to thank you for bringing this issue up, especially.
Can I talk about construction for a minute?
Well, just a minute. Let me add this piece of information that just came out today with the city manager's weekly update. On February 18th, there will be a community webinar on flood control and climate change for the city of Santa Cruz. Participate in this community webinar on February 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. to learn about new modeling of the potential impacts of climate change on the San Lorenzo River flooding, and to discuss how the city and the community can begin to plan for it. So that would be an important one to attend, to find out how the city is planning to address flooding in this issue, in this area that we are discussing here today, the expansion area.
And where do you get the link to go on that webinar?
If you look on, you register. It came out today in the city manager's weekly update. So I think if you were to look on the city manager's website, you would see it. There is a button to click for this to register for free today. That's February.
Glad you're reading your email.
February 18th. Thank you. All right, now I want to just say this is Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbrunner. This is SantaCruzVoice.com, and I really want to thank all of you for joining us today. We're talking with Rick Longinotti and Frank Barron about the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan. The draft environmental impact report is out now for you to look at and submit comment on until the deadline is February 21st at 5 p.m. You can look at this plan by going to the Santa Cruz City Downtown Expansion Plan and click on any of the links to look at a piece of it that you are interested in. It is a large document, so don't be overwhelmed. Just pick a spot, wade in, and do something. So I'd like to now go to our caller, Lee Brokaw, who's been waiting here to talk about construction. I am interested in your thoughts on the possibility of liquefaction in this area, if you have any thoughts.
Well, I think it's highly probable. But I just want to say I've got 44 years construction experience, 37 with a license. And I have been through numerous engineering changes as a result of earthquakes and other kinds of disasters. And you get a set of plans, and the engineer says, yep, this will work, yep, this will work. And then you have a Kalinga earthquake, and they go, oh, no, that doesn't work now. We need to change that. And so I've been through a number of these changes, and I think the phrase we use in construction, any abnormal half-wit, would look at building up on top of soil that's been deposited by the river a couple of hundred years ago. And I'm sure you'll get a soils engineer that'll test it and say, well, it meets the compaction, it meets 95% compaction, you're good to go. Well, that's crazy. That's crazy. You get a good earthquake, and you're going to have liquefaction for sure. It's going to look like the marina. I remember, some years ago, there was an earthquake in Taiwan or Japan, and the entire building went over across the street, and not even a window glass was broken. It was so tightly built, so structurally sound, that it went to the place that wasn't, the foundation. They had all the shear in there and the hold downs and all that sort of stuff, so the whole building went over.
Wow.
It doesn't make sense to, and of course we're talking about the city council, so already I'm out in left field. It doesn't make sense to build in an area that has high probability of giving you trouble.
Can I hold you there, Lee? Because you've made a couple comments.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to give other people a chance, too. If others want to call in, the number is 831-265-5050. 265-5050, and join the discussion. So you've brought up a couple of points. Engineering, and also how to effectively get the attention of the City Council on this issue. Let me go to Rick and Frank with their thoughts, coaching us here today on how we, the public, can have the most effective means of having our concerns heard and acted upon. Rick, what are your thoughts? Hello? Oh, maybe we lost Rick.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I muted myself.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. So
Rick, turn back your microphone. So I on the issue of affordable housing, because that's, kind of the big selling point for this project, right? I think what Frank said is accurate. We don't need to do that anymore. When this project was conceived to upzoning, allow more density, it was with the idea to get more affordable housing units built. Well, the state is taking care of that. They've allowed more units to get built. So why continue with a project that, the purpose of the project has already been satisfied, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the other feature people should know is, this actually could wind up not producing as many affordable units as maybe just leaving things the way they are, because it allows this developer fee, so instead of constructing an affordable unit, like instead of constructing, 1 out of every 5 units, 20% of units would be affordable, it could pay a fee of $60 a square foot. So you figure 1,000 square foot apartment, that's $60,000. Well, if you want one affordable unit for every 5 units, that's only $240,000 going towards an affordable unit. That's not nearly enough. I mean, the cost to build an affordable housing unit is like $600,000 or more. So it's letting the developers off pretty easily here, and no one's really penciled out that whole calculation. That really needs to be explored. This is a trial balloon that's been floated, this whole density bonus idea for the city zone density bonus, and nobody really knows what the impact is because it's not really discussed in the EIR.
Mm-hmm. So the EIR itself is inadequate in that respect.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
so for folks who are thinking, hey, let's get affordable housing built, this might be the wrong horse to bet on,
Mm-hmm. Frank, what do you have to say?
Well, to Lee's comment about construction and liquefaction in particular, I agree those are major concerns, and that Lee, please submit those as comments. Submit the comments you made here today in writing, and the city will need to address that, or the consultant that they have for the EIR. And in terms of those very tall buildings, I'm not an engineer, but I've been told by engineers that you can engineer anything.
Yeah, I hear that too.
So, probably what they would need to do on those very tall buildings is, have pilings that go all the way down to bedrock to be able to be, drilled in to the bedrock so that the liquefaction wouldn't cause that kind of collapse that Lee described. And I understand that the bedrock is quite a ways down in that area, like a couple hundred feet. So it might be pretty expensive for them to do that. And I think that is something that the EIR should take a look at.
Yes, that's a good point. So one could phrase that comment that the EIR needs to determine the depth to the bedrock and to ensure that pile driving is required to reach bedrock levels for any tall buildings. Is that an effective way to say it?
Yes. Write that down. Submit it.
And
I think that they should have to do that. Yeah, and we, I'm of the opinion that it's not going to be just going directly to the final EIR stage after our letters. I think they're going to have to revise the draft and recirculate the draft EIR, and then have another chance for folks to look at it.
Well, typically what they do, in my experience, is they do that and give you 10 days notice. And then it goes. It's very quick at that point, and they don't always have to have a public hearing in that time. But
speaking of time limits, this was only 45 days they gave us. It's like they should be giving us at least 60 for a project this big. This is the biggest project in Santa Cruz's history, at least since UC Santa Cruz. I mean, this is the big project. This is as big as it gets,
Yeah.
And this is something that people, they're trying to sweep it under the rug or not let people know about it. And it seems like this should be on everyone's radar. The newspaper should be having stories every day about it. And we're hearing crickets.
Absolutely. And to that effect, people should be asking the city. Would it be the city planning department to extend the public comment for this because there has not been proper notification, or people need more time because it's such a voluminous document? What would we do to ask for more time?
Well, I would say that would be an appropriate comment to submit, saying this was inadequate, period of time for such a major project to be able to, for people to know about it and to review it adequately.
Yeah. And then if we're talking about pile driving, the EIR must address the mitigation for the noise of the construction of doing that. This is a residential area, right? That would, and the whole tourist area, tourist accommodations, how will the noise affect it? How will they mitigate the noise? That could be another comment that people should submit. Would you agree with that?
That's right. Yeah, they do address noise. They do address noise, and but I don't know if they address the noise of pile driving all the way down to bedrock.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have to, because if they're going to make these tall buildings, they must be. They did pile driving for the construction that's happening along the river now. So they have to address that. Let's see. If you out there would like to call in, we've got about 10 minutes left. Please join our conversation today. We're talking about the Santa Cruz City downtown expansion plan with Mr. Rick Longinotti and Mr. Frank Barron, two great activists, very experienced in environmental review and planning issues. And we have on the side here Mr. Lee Brokaw, a longtime contractor, weighing in. Why don't you join in and talk with us? The number to call is 831-265-5050. You can find more information about this plan on the Santa Cruz City website if you search for the downtown expansion plan. Public comment on this document is closing soon, February 21st at 5 p.m. You have to submit your comment in writing to Miss Sarah Noose, and there's instructions for all of that on the website there. Do look at it. Now, is there a hard copy of this document, to your knowledge, available in public libraries?
Yes, at the main library, there's one copy.
Okay. And is that at the reference desk, or where would one find it? All right. Very good. So the downtown library, the main library, has that. And I urge you, sometimes it's easier for people who are not comfortable with computers, or maybe not accessible to them. You can go to the downtown main library and look at the document there.
Also, the planning department has one. I forgot, but that one's only available for being viewed like in the morning, like 8 until 11 or something. It's kind of silly.
That's interesting. Do you have to make an appointment?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Oh, well, that's very accommodating of them.
Not on Fridays, I don't think. I think it's only Monday through Thursday.
Oh, right.
I'm not sure about that. But
in alternate weeks. Please, go ahead.
Can I speak to affordable housing?
Oh, yes. Is this Lee?
It's Lee.
Yes. Please go ahead, because that's a big issue that is missing in this document. So please go ahead.
Housing isn't affordable. That's why they have mortgage companies. If it was affordable, you could pay for it out of pocket. The financialization of where we sleep is horrendous to the population. And the last thing Sandy Brown said at her farewell address to the council, we can't build our way out of this problem. We have an income problem, not an affordability problem. If we solve the income problem and give people a wage commensurate with what it costs to live in the city that they're in, the affordability of housing kind of goes away. So you can't populate. Go ahead.
Are we going to be wrapping up by 4 o'clock?
Yes, we'll have a hard stop.
Okay,
at 4
I have
o'clock.
one more thing I wanted to say before
Please.
4 o'clock. I got 6
Please,
minutes,
go ahead.
I agree, Lee, that is an issue, but it's not one that's directly affected by this project. So that's kind of getting a little far afield, but you can still make that comment. But I wanted to make one comment about water supply, and I know Rick probably has something to say about this too, but the EIR relies on a worst-case drought scenario in their analyses. That is of the period from 1973 through 77, okay? So that's a 5-year period. The first year, 73, and the second year, 74, were very wet years. They were abnormally wet years, okay? The third year, 75, was a normal rainfall year. It was only 76 and 77 that were dry. So they called that 5-year period their worst-case scenario, drought, a multi-year drought. But that's not. It's only a 2-year drought. So they need to use a better example of what a multi-year drought is going to be, how little water we're going to have. All of our water in the county comes from what falls as rain and gets, percolates into the groundwater, or ends up at Newell, at the Loch Lomond Reservoir, Newell Creek. We don't have any other water, and so the EIR needs to do a better evaluation of what a real drought is going to mean, vis-a-vis this development and all the other cumulative development throughout the city. Rick, I know you have something to say about water too.
Yeah, I mean, just that the argument that the Santa Cruz water supply, which they admittedly in the is inadequate in multi-drought years, that water supply is really not very much affected at all by new growth. But that's just not true.
Yeah.
The new growth does deplete the reservoir every year in the summer, and the years when the reservoir doesn't fill back up again, that depletion is felt in the next year and the year after that, if it's a dry year, and the year after that, if it's another dry year. So every new development affects the drought year security of Santa Cruz. And it's up to people in the city, not like, most of us would say, well, no, we can't grow at all, but we need to decide how can that be mitigated? And there are ways in which, as you know, Becky, the Soquel Creek Water District for many years did water neutral development, where they charged a fee that would replace toilets within the district and completely 100% offset the new water demand from new development. Well, we got to be creative in figuring out, because as Frank said, this is, you can't grow forever in a closed system. We're dependent on rainfall. Ultimately, desalination is way too expensive and energy intensive. So we're stuck with what the skies give us, and we got to get creative and and quit pretending that growth doesn't affect us.
Mm-hmm. I have to tell you that the county, Santa Cruz City and Soquel Creek are looking at this water optimization analysis. It's funded by a state grant, and they're looking at how to best use the water that would come from the Pure Water Soquel water treatment plant, recycled water, and that would supply the city's needs in a critically dry time. My hunch is is what I don't know if the EIR for this project has mentioned that, but that's in the wings. What about the stadium? We're talking about this huge stadium that's going to bring in a lot of people who may stay in the hotels or whatever around there. Is that the water use for that? Is that included in the analysis at all?
I don't recall it being specifically called out, but go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't recall either whether that's called out either. The overall point is that, by nobody contests the fact that we're short on water in multi-year droughts. Mm-hmm. But what is at contest is whether new growth affects that or not. And if you ask the person on the street, can you grow the city forever and not impact our water supply? Everybody would know the answer. But why, somehow it gets obfuscated in the city's logic. Yeah.
We're in our last minute. I want to thank Rick Longinotti and Frank Barron for joining us today, and Lee Brokaw for calling in. Thank you very much for giving us a good education here. Rick, I'm going to let you have the last word here. We'll run out of time soon. What do you recommend people do?
I recommend that people get to their council members. I don't know that any of these council members, including Mayor Keeley, wants to be the poster child for a bunch of 20-story buildings. So I think that the winds of change are happening, and it's time they hear from us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your good work, and we'll be listening to what we have to say in the future here. Again, get involved, read it, select any piece, and submit a comment as soon as you can. We're off the air now, so thank you, all of you, very much. And
thanks for doing this, Becky.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Thank you. We'll try to get you back on soon, okay?
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate being on.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye,
Thank
Lee.
you. Bye.
All righty.
Bye.
Oh, boy. I'm okay.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello.
I heard parts of that, but I was busy doing other stuff today too.
No,
They're good people. I like what they're doing. It's
yes.
seems like never-ending battle. Gotta build more. Gotta build higher.
Fire is not the answer. Okay, I don't see log out.
On the phone line.
Yeah.
Should be on the bottom line.
Why don't you just drop all the calls first and drop, and then
There's
drop, and then
there's
scroll all the way to the bottom of the
at the
page.
bottom.
There's a end show.
And show.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Okay.
And then
Confirm end show. That's it. That'll get you to call in studio. Then
Okay.
go Santa Cruz voice tab. Actually, is that call in studio
Oh,
or,
it is
or
call in.
radio code?
Radio
is that where
code.
radio
where we
code
were?
is where you gotta start.
Then you gotta log out. So I think that little blue doohickey here. Log out.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank
She
you.
knows how.
Thank
They know
you.
how to
And
do
you
it.
don't forget your USB.
Yeah. Susan, I think, left one here. This is maybe hers. I'm not sure.
Leave it out, should be able to find it.
Do not forget your thumb drive.